Baik. Baik, selamat pagi Bapak Ibu semua peserta sharing session on linguistics yang kedua. Terima kasih banyak atas waktu yang diberikan untuk menghadiri session kedua ini. Dan saya sekarang akan menyerahkan podium online ini kurang lebih kepada Bapak Koprodi Sastra Inggris, Profesor Dr. Nyoman Sedeng, untuk membuka dan memberikan sedikit kata sambutan kepada kita hari ini sebelum saya menyampaikan beberapa informasi terkait session kali ini dan memperkenalkan pembicara kita hari ini. Baik, silakan Bapak Prof. Nyoman Sedeng untuk memberikan sambutan. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Pak Gede Primadi. Selamat pagi Bapak Ibu. Selamat datang di seminar sharing session kita yang kedua on linguistik hari ini. Selamat pagi Pak Wayan. Masih pagi nih Pak di Bali Pak.
Selamat siang waktu Canberra.
Terima kasih saya ucapkan kepada Prof. Sutjiati Beratha M.A. dan Ibu Sukarini yang telah bersedia mengisi panggung kita pagi ini. Bapak Ibu sekalian, sebentar Bapak Dede akan memperkenalkan kedua pembicara kita pagi ini. Pertemuan kita yang kedua ini merupakan pertemuan yang membicarakan atau yang membahas tentang semantik. Semantik merupakan salah satu bidang inti yang ada di dalam pembicaraan bahasa. Saya sangat berbahagia 48 partisipan sudah hadir yang pada pendaftaran tercatat 100 sekian. Mungkin beliau akan segera masuk setelah kita memulainya. Bapak Ibu yang saya hormati dan Ibu-Ibu, Ibu Prof. Sutjiati Beratha dan Ibu Wayan Sukarini, apa yang kita harapkan pagi ini kita akan berbagi hasil penelitian yang Ibu-Ibu kerjakan belakangan ini. Semoga pertemuan kita hari ini membuahkan hasil dan dapat men-share, berbagi masalah semantik yang akan disampaikan oleh Ibu-Ibu berdua. Untuk mempersingkat waktu, saya ucapkan selamat berseminar. Semoga apa yang kita bicarakan hari ini akan memperluas wawasan kita bersama. Begitu juga Ibu-Ibu berdua, karena telah sanggup, maksudnya telah punya sempat menyampaikan ide-ide yang kita bisa share bersama. Saya kira selamat berseminar dan selamat berdiskusi, sehingga kita mendapatkan sesuatu yang berguna, baik untuk diri sendiri maupun untuk mahasiswa-mahasiswa kita, karena kita semua adalah kangguru-kangguru yang memberikan sesuatu kepada mahasiswa kita. Saya kira itu satu dua kata saya yang saya bisa sampaikan pagi ini, dan panggung saya serahkan kepada Pak Gede Primadi. Terima kasih.
Silakan. Terima kasih Prof atas sambutannya, dan kepada Bapak Ibu sebelum saya memperkenalkan Oke. Ada yang saya nggak tahu kenapa bergabung. Mungkin belum ada yang ini. Tes. Oke. Baik, selamat pagi. Saya ingin menyampaikan beberapa hal. Yang pertama, session ini adalah sekarang menjadi kerjasama antara kami, Prodi Sastra Inggris, dan program studi Doktor dan Magister Linguistics di Udayana, serta CIRHSS, Center for Interdisciplinary Research on the Humanities and Social Sciences, di Fakultas Ilmu Budaya di Universitas Udayana. Dan untuk kolaborasi itu saya berterima kasih atas sambutan positif dari pimpinan program studi magister dan doktor linguistik dan juga di sastra Inggris serta direktur dari CIRHSS untuk inisiatif dan juga sambutan positifnya. Saya juga ingin berterima kasih pada teman-teman di tim yang ikut membantu kali ini untuk webinar.
Volumenya?
Untuk webinar kali ini, Ibu Santi, Bu Krisnawati, Bu Rahayu, dan Bu Weda, terima kasih banyak atas waktunya dan bersedia ikut membantu. Kemudian terakhir, tentunya kepada Bapak Ibu partisipan yang sudah menyediakan waktu untuk hadir kali ini. Saya berharap mikrofon di turn off, kecuali presenter, dan pertanyaan bisa ditanyakan melalui chat untuk efisiensi waktu, dan kalau ada waktu lebih kita bisa bertanya langsung. Kemudian link untuk attendance itu akan dibagikan nanti setelah presentasi, walaupun tadi mungkin sudah muncul di chat. Saya berharap Bapak Ibu tetap ikut di sesi ini, dan kami juga akan membagikan link terkait informasi pembicara kami selanjutnya nanti mendekati akhir sesi ini. Baik, mari kita mulai. Saya akan memperkenalkan pembicara kita kali ini. Yang pertama adalah Ibu Prof. Dr. Sutjiati Beratha N. Beliau adalah guru besar di bidang linguistik. Dan yang spesial tentunya adalah beliau adalah mantan pembimbing saya waktu skripsi S1, pembimbing utama saya dan S2. Jadi dan kita berharap kita bisa mendapatkan input baru terkait semantik dari presentasi yang disajikan Ibu Prof kali ini. Selanjutnya pembicara kedua adalah Ibu Dr. Wayan Sukarini, yang juga adalah merupakan dosen writing saya dulu semester 1 saya. Jadi beliau mengajarkan kami cara mengorganize writing Inggris yang tidak mudah. Dan saya berterima kasih kepada Ibu Sukarini dan Ibu Prof yang bersedia untuk menyampaikan hasil dan insight yang beliau miliki hari ini. Dan kalau Bapak Ibu teman-teman melihat flyer interaktif kami, dengan mengklik foto beliau di situ, Bapak Ibu bisa diarahkan ke laman Udayana Networking yang sudah dimiliki oleh Universitas Udayana saat ini untuk para dosen yang menampilkan profil akademis mereka di situ. Jadi detail link flyer. Baik, saatnya saya mengizinkan Ibu Prof untuk presentasi pertama 30 menit. Nanti mungkin saya minta maaf sebelumnya di awal kalau saya akan nantinya mengingatkan Ibu Prof dan juga Ibu Dr. Sukarini kalau waktunya masih tersisa lagi 5 menit. Baik, selamat menikmati pembicaraan kita kali ini. Terima kasih. Silakan Bu Prof.
Baik, terima kasih Dede sebagai chairperson pada sharing session kali ini. Om Swastiastu. our respected professors, lecturers, other participants, ladies and gentlemen. Today I would like to share a material related to semantic study. So my topic today is about what meaning is in its relation to denotation. I myself to focus my talk on philosophy of meaning in order that I'll be able to answer the question, what is meaning? While later on, Ibu Dr. Sukarini will focus her presentations in meaning relations. So that's why I will begin my talk with a slideshow. Sorry. Okay. It's down. I think everybody has already understood, and our head of department has stated how important semantic is. We have read many theories, and then some of them also state about the definition of meaning. Each of the theory is based on particular aim of extracting it. We can spot our own conception about theory of meaning. So this session or sharing sessions, as I said before, try to answer the question what meaning is. Generally, there are three kinds of meaning. The first one, we should understand what sense is, what denotations, and utterance. Since we are all understand that sense as the property of meaning in abstract category, such as sentence can have meaning, or lexeme or morpheme. While denotations is about the use of sense in speaking of some particular word. While mostly also we have heard what utterance meanings is what here rationally determine that the speaker intend his meaning to convey. So therefore, sense is the common basis for determining other kind of meaning. It depends on whose semantics that we are going to follow. For today, I will explain the idea of Professor M.Hum, my former lecturer from Monash University in Melbourne, who divide type of meanings into 5. The first one is ostension meaning. We often point and utter the name of something to ask someone to do or to take it. In this situation, hearer will think to find out the denotation meaning of the word based on the setting around her or him. It will work well if the hearer has sufficient command of the language for denotatum to be distinguished from verbally specific field. The hearer has to master the language in order to understand ostensive definition, or people know the meaning of the word in some expressions. In this context, also, Keith Allen proposed meaning is as used. There are 2 ways to reveal meaning of a new word by looking at whoever, that's the most important one, whoever use it. So we know the first one in scientific or academic circle. It shows more formal meaning. So often people say the literal meaning of a word, while the second is the informal situation or ordinary language, which is which we mostly use everyday language. The hearer has to find out the meaning of a word by themselves from the context because it relates with the used. I give you example now. To say the meaning of a word is determined by its use is not to say that the meaning of a word is used. It's very common, like what Derrida said. Meaning is not what the word means, but how the speaker wants the words to mean, because it relates with its use. I give you example as I said before. A very common example. This is my classic example. I often give it to my students in order that it will stay in their mind. For example, like the word book, before we put into the context, I'll try to put now into the context. She borrows my English book. It could mean the first one, someone has borrowed the speaker English book. In this example, book means or has literal meaning as a written or printed work consisting of pages glued or sewn together alongside and bound in cover. While in the second example, I booked a single room for tonight. Of course, the second example, the book in second example doesn't have the same meaning as the first one. So in the second example, of course, it referred to reservation. Therefore, it means that the speaker has to make a reservation for a single room tonight. So from this, we can understand the meaning of a sentence is conveyed successfully if and only if the truth conditions of that sentence are understood. That's the key point. The truth conditions are understood. However, there are many sentences that are understood, although their truth condition is uncertain. Therefore, we should understand also, as I said, I focus on philosophy of meaning. Once you know that, it's very easy to determine the meaning of a word or words. There are two schools of language philosophy which have adopted this approach. The first one, verificationism and truth conditional semantic. What is meant by verificationism? Which put philosophy on a scientific basis by resources to procedure for empirical, observational, and verification of statement. The verificationists hold that literal meaning of a statement is given by defining the method for observational verifying the condition under which the sentence expressing that statement is used. This is the example. My brother is bold. It is defined as an observation statement. It verifies that S stands for speaker, has a brother, and that speaker's brother at that time of utterance is in fact bold because it's relate with what verificationism say related to philosophy of meaning. In truth and meaning, I follow also Davidson that suggests to know the meaning of a sentence is to know the condition under which truth condition is used as presented in the example before. Truth conditional semantic is founded on the truth instead of mean of observationally verifying the truth. It can be regarded as refinement, a simplification, and an extension of verificationism. And the next type of meaning, almost everybody knows, the ideas of blown field, the ideas of stimulus and response. And he also proposed meaning as speaker stimulus and hearer response. Bloomfield proclaimed linguistics as an empirical science and maintained that objectivity in examining linguistic data can be safeguarded by careful delimitations of the aim of inquiry, and a descriptions of the procedures for analysis, followed by a statement of the result. Moreover, he also stated that all statements about language should be vulnerable. I think we have also familiar with that, open to verification or to disapprove. In the early 1920s, Bloomfield changed his path into a belief of behaviorist psychological. It suggests that language behavior is a response to some kind of observable stimulus. So the theory holds that we can predict the desired meaning of a statement by analyzing either the stimulus given by the speaker and the response of the hearer. Therefore, it said meaning is a speaker stimulus and hearer response. Bloomfield also states that the speaker situation will usually present a simpler aspect than the hearer response. Therefore, we usually discuss and define meaning in terms of a speaker's stimulus as what his statement suggested. Meaning of a statement is more likely determined by the stimulus of the speaker. This is also really very important to be understood, although it's a bit apart from other semanticists. But Keith Helen said that meaning as a concept, the ideational theory of meaning, because he proposed or developed that meaning is considered to be subjective or subjective ideas. As stated in my slide, the ideational theory of meaning is the theory according to which meaning of words are subjective ideas. If I observe locally that individual has slightly different concept corresponding to the word, and therefore a slightly different private meaning for it, which may well be true. However, he didn't believe that all words represent concept, because as we know, concept is psychological object, while sense is abstract object. So we have to stake on that, how to determine the meaning. Beside words which are names of ideas in mind, there are a great many others that are made use of to signify the connection that mind gives to ideas or propositions with one another. From linguist point of view, as I said before, it is not satisfactory to determine the meaning of ideas or concept as the reason that I said before. It put the meaning in individual souls. For example, if you hear the word physics, it's very common. So what is the concept of the word physics? I repeat again, concept is psychological object. Is a boy with a fishing rod in a boat on a sea, or a girl is netting a minnow, a small fish. In this case, the basic concept of fishing, because a concept is psychological object, the basic concept of fishing is catching or trying to catch fish. The strength of this theory is that it captures the inside that language, as we have already known, as an instrument for the communication of the thought. We try to communicate what we think. And the next one, we follow what Plato said. Like this one, meaning as abstract object, as Platonist conception of meaning. So without knowing what meaning is, it's very difficult to determine type of meaning that word conveys. So Plato said that knowing and understanding, for instance, the word circle and what is circle is only partly gained through experience of circle. Maybe a theory of Plato is developed then used by Derrida, because we believe Derrida doesn't like if we try to convey the meaning of a word's simpler or stative, because the meaning is not stative. The meaning is dynamic. But Plato used concept of immortal, as will be presented in the next slide. So Platonic form would exist for all object, event, qualities are not sensible to mankind, but exist in an immortal world or separate from ours. Because in this context, Plato believed that a man may have access to the form through his immortal soul. The soul then being immortal and having been born again many times and having seen all things that exist. Therefore, it means that meaning of word circle has developed at that time. Circle may be only referred to the safe. However, now the meaning has developed due to people needs. So meaning is really very dynamic. It's never static. So I like the idea of this, and also what is proposed by Derrida, because the theory is developed. Then now, like the title of my talk, sense and the perceived characteristic of denotator. The meaning is denotative meaning. So here we have characteristic of denotative. So you have a formula like this. The relationship between the form of an expression. We have expression. And then what is the sense of expression? And what is the denotatum of the expression? So to label intended denotatum is label as D, but the expression is E, capital E, has the effect of ascribing certain properties to denotatum as a function. So denotatum functions as expression of sense. So meaning is sense. See, so property, sense is property of meaning in abstract category, as I said. So when you want to mean, or if you want to get the meaning of a word will convey a certain meaning, try to look at this formula. What the intended denotatum, what sort of expression to be used, and then the effect as ascribing certain properties to denotatum as a function of expressions sense. This is examples. If someone paint a design in white and black, and of course I should say, otherwise you will say zebra, something like that. Could be also zebra, black and white. But I put title as a cat. So we look for the familiar characteristic of feline animal upon the canvas. Jadinya, kelompok kucing. Yeah. Another examples I gave you also. See? So expressions. So we look at the formula. Expressions like I love chick. See? So what is the sense? As I said, sense is the property of meaning. The meaning is in the sense, and then it's realized by denotator. So sense, chick, the sense of chick is could be little, chicken, or girl. And then the denotatum, the realizations, might be as a little chicken or chick as a sexy girls. So I do believe with the semantics like Ogden and Richards, who are, we are familiar with the triangle of Ogden and Richards. Name, and then you have a referent or thought, and then you have reference. And while almond, name and sense, and the sense is the meaning of it. So if we just heard the word chick without or before putting in a career context, we've got to be careful because we refer to what Kit Helen say. So meaning is in use. So that's the examples. And then we also must aware of, because we are English as a foreign language or as a second language, of course, our language is not our native language. So how to learn the meaning may be the same as the characteristic of the young children. That's why I mentioned here in my talk, because young children over generalization. It is a characteristic of very young children language between 1 and 2.5 years old to over-generalize the sense of word and use them with too wide denotational scope. There are some reasons. So I give you the photo. The children could distinguish this type of animals. They belong to, let's say here, feline. They belong to bovine. But of course, they don't have yet, as a research conducted by Clark said that this phenomenon occurred because children, just like us, because we are not the native speaker of the English language, children are not aware yet of particular set of characteristics of proper to denotatum of doggy, not because of child unable to perceive the difference between animal, not because of that. They don't have yet the proper characteristic of denotatum. And also, as it said by Anglin, when the children finally recognize only the appropriate perceived characteristic of typical of denotatum of a word as used by their language community, they will have grasped the conventional sense of the words. We have also need to understand another concept which is really very important in semantic, perception. Perception is a mental act or effect using knowledge as a filtering device to categorize clues that come from phenomena such as objects, state, event, X, etc. in the real world. Categorization is a matter of matching sense data with conceptual prototype. Mostly what is said here found in the theory of meaning related to translation, as Newmark said. And Newmark said it also divides into something as an object, something as an event, you see, because Newmark also give formula like giving general features, diagnostic features, and supplement features. You see, so the development of this is also developed into translation theory, particularly so far I know that's from Newmark. For example, I give you here, particularly this is really very relevant to translations. A piece of ribbon is a piece of string, which is broad and flat. But beside that also, a handkerchief, it is a long and thin. Other example, because why categorization is very important, because the same categorization can be made for different set of data. One you hear sprig of flower and a kind of perfume can be categorized as jasmine. So if I concern about this, and what is your concern? That's the meaning. As also said by Bell Polly, if you refer to theory of PERS, what is your concern? Something is used to index the meaning of something. A significant aspect of categorization of sense data. So recognition or recurrence of the pattern in the sense of the data. Expectancies of categorizing sense data. Availability of linguistic coding. So here, I almost finished. So you got to be patient a little bit. It is possible when the perceived properties of phenomena are relevant to defining the sense. As I said, the sense is the meaning. If we come back to look at Alman theory, the sense is the meaning of a language expression will be perceivable by more than one of senses because it still relates. Besides generalization, it also relates to our five sensing. That means the notations will convey different form. This is also a very good example. See? So as I said, what makes a cup rather than a mug? So it relates with what theory of what Newmark theory in relation to theory of meaning. See? But first of all, I refer to what Lebert said about the notational structure. He reports various kinds of labeling tasks involving the applications such label as cup, mug, bowl, glass, goblet, vase, to line drawing a container of different shapes and configurations. Some subjects were asked to label a picture freely without any particular content being mentioned, or where it was to be imagined that someone was drinking coffee out of the container, or the container was served on a shelf with cut flower in it. So you could identify if there is a definition like that. So what make them different? The results show that the decision made during object labeling is correlated to the sense, you see, again, to the sense of the word chosen with the perceived characteristic of object denoted by it. So the decision is made on the following basis. The shape of configurations of container, proportions of height and weight, like what Newmark said, what the object like, what the object could be used, something like that. So in here, the material from which the container is made, the purpose to which the container is put, or where the container is located. Let's make mug is a mug, it's not a cup or goblet or whatever. Because of this is really very important when we have to paraphrase something like in translation, because we cannot exactly always find one-to-one correlation between the form semantically. So we have to be able to determine the relation between sense and denotations. This is the last. Hopefully I don't spend a lot of time for this. So from my presentation before, it is clear now what meaning is and how sense and denotation are linked, as I said before. The sense of a language expressions is an abstract object represented in term language expression, because we use expression to realize the meaning of the words, describing the characteristic of prototype denotatum. They are thought to correspond to a concept in mind of the language user. Sense is an abstract object. Concept is a psychological object. So denotation is the use of sense of an expression to label a phenomenon whose salient characteristic in a given context approximate to those of prototype denotatum for that expression. I think that's my presentations, and then I do hope that you get what I have already explained. And thank you very much for paying attention. And also now I would like to invite Ibu Sukarini, of course, through the Mr. Chairman, because Ibu Sukarini will try to develop meaning relations. Now, please, Mr. Chairman, I return now the meeting room to you. Thank you very much.
Baik, thank you Bu Prof. Exactly 30 minutes. Sekarang saya akan share screen untuk slides Ibu Sukarini.
Ya.
Microsoft PowerPoint. Bu Sukarini. Oke, sudah siap. Dengar Bu. Sebentar dulu saya ngecek mikrofon yang lain.
Silahkan.
Saya juga akan mute mikrofon saya. Oke, silakan Ibu next saja nanti Bu ya. Nanti saya mainkan slide-nya.
Baik. Terima kasih Dede. Gede Primahadi Wijaya. First, let I greet all Ibu and Bapak. Selamat pagi, good morning to all of you. Today or this morning, I would like to continue what Ibu Prof. Sutjiati Beratha has already presented about what meaning is, and my presentation is a small part which has a very close related to meaning, that is meaning relation. Next day. I would like to inform that this is not my research, but I would like to share the idea of one semanticist named Sebastian Loebner. So I want to share his idea about meaning relation. Let us start with the introduction. Meaning relations is the systematic relation between word meanings. That's what I cited or I took from Godard. Meaning relations are defined dual relations between meanings themselves. Therefore, two expressions are synonymous if or only if they have the same or similar meaning. That's what Loebner stated. Meaning relations or semantic relations are the associations between meanings of words, phrases, or sentences at word, phrase, or sentence levels. So the relations are, so it depends on every semanticist to what level they would like to define. And from Loebner's, there are 4. Those are synonymy, eponymy, oppositions, and lexical fields. Next. The following information or description or explanation about synonymy. Two expressions are synonymous if they have the same meaning. Synonymy in the strict sense, or Loebner's call it total synonymy, includes all meaning variants for two, possibly lexemes, and it includes all meaning dimensions. What are they? They are descriptive, social, and expressive meaning. The following information about synonymy. two polysemous expressions are synonymous if they have the same set of meaning variants. Expressions with descriptive meaning and others are synonymous if they have the same descriptive as well as the same non-descriptive meaning. Next. I took an example given in the book. It is in German language, in which the two words have the same meaning. I tried to find in our language, in the Bahasa Indonesia, how about if minggu and ahad to synonymy because they have the same meaning. And so here I took an example from Lobsner. Both expressions, samstag and sonaben, have the same meaning, which means Saturday, one of the name of the days in a week, belong to a common usage but different regional preference. So Somnaben is used in northern part of Germany. Goddard also stated that true synonymy is so rare as to be almost non-existent. Next. Besides total synonymy, there is partial synonymy in which two lexemes may have one or more meaning variants in common. Here I took of the words spectacles and glasses. Both are similar in meaning, as it is said that true synonymy or total synonymy is very rare. Both denote the subjects worn in used to see clearly. But glasses may also just the meaning of glass, one of its other meaning variants. Let's have a look at the following explanation why it is called partial synonymy between spectacles and glasses. Next. Next, Siri. Okay. In everyday use, the term synonymy is applied more broadly to pairs of expressions which can mean the same in certain contexts. This non-technical notion of synonymy is not of the expression, but just on their use, on their denotations. Based on Lochner's terminology, such synonyms are equivalents in certain contexts rather than having a similar conceptual meaning. Yeah, why it is said that glasses and spectacles are not identical. They don't have, they have the same meaning, but they are. For example, in the following sentence, we can say she drank 2 spectacles of oranges or orange juice. That's not correct. Drank 2 glasses of oranges. That is said that both of the words belong to synonymy. It depends on the context. Next. That's about synonymy, and now we go to hyponymy. In hyponymy, according to Lochner, there are 2, hyponymy and regular compound. So there are things in hyponymy, and regular compound. Hyponymy, the meaning relation of hyponymy defined as follows. An expression A is a hyponym of an expression B, and B a hyperonym of A if the words have the following condition. The first condition of B is a proper part of the meaning of A, and the second condition is A is a logical subordinate of B, in which A entails B. Next. The meaning of A must contain further specifications in addition to the meaning of B, rendering then the meaning of B. Hyponymy is a relation between lexemes or more complex expressions that results from a relation between their meanings and gives rise to a relation between their denotations. Hyponymy among lexemes consider pairs of subordinates and superordinates in hierarchy. So the relation is subordinate and superordinate. Here is an example for hyponymy and hyperonym. The word belongs to hyperonym, which has the hyponyms of noun, verb, adjective, etc. Next. The second in hyponymy is regular compounds. A regular compound has two parts, the modifier and the head. The modifier adds a specification to the meaning of the head noun. For example, orange juice. The modifier orange adds the specification because it produced from orange, the specification to the concept of juice. The interpretation of regular compounds ensures that the compound is a hyponym of its head. Yeah, so orange is the hyponym of juice. Next. The meaning of the modifier is also bound into the meaning of the compound, but not in the same way as the meaning of the head. Therefore, the resulting meaning relation between the compound and the modifier is not hyponymy. Because orange juice is not an orange. The meaning relation depends on the way in which the meaning of the modifier is built into the meaning of the whole. For example, the meaning relation between orange and orange juice is as follows. Reference of the first, that is orange, are needed or used in reference of the second. Second reference is orange juice. Next. The following figure illustrates the meaning relations within regular compounds in general, in which I use orange juice as example. So the same example. Yeah, so orange is the modifier, juice is the head, and the modifier can be various. And on the left side, that belongs to hyponymy, and it produces a compound that is orange juice. Next. Now, after hyponymy, then it comes in meaning relation, that is oppositions, and Loebner's there are 6 items in oppositions. Those are examples, antonyms, directional opposites, complementaries, heteronymy, and converse. And the one I use as example of opposition here is the first one, that is example. Okay, if people are asked to specify the opposite of the word old, for example, their answers will vary because words may have different kind of opposites. The intuitive notion covers a variety of meaning relations. Next. Yeah. Of old, which has the opposites new and young. The two opposites of old reveal that old is polysemous because it has the meaning of new and young. Old as an opposite of young relates to age, primarily of living creatures. The opposite old and young can also be used for inanimate entities that are metaphorically conceived as subject to the development as growth, ripening, and aging. Next. And here are the other oppositions from Leibniz, beside examples, as I have informed before. There are antonyms. Antonyms, for example, thick and thin, and then directional opposites, complementaries, heteronymy, and converses. So those are the oppositions, those are the points and the meaning relation of opposition, right, which I took from Leibniz. Next. And the last one in meaning relation is the lexical fields. There are also 4 levels in lexical fields. The first is the notion of lexical field. The second is small fields, and then taxonomies, and the last one is meronymies. And here I try to one an explanation of one of the lexical fields, that is the notion of lexical field. A lexical field is a group of lexemes that fulfills the following conditions. So the 4 are the conditions which should be there in a lexical field. The condition are the lexemes. The lexemes are the same word class. Their meanings have something in common. They are interrelated by precisely definable meaning relations. And the last condition is the group is complete in terms of the relevant meaning relations. Next. And here I took the example of the name of the days because it has as stated in lexical fields. The names of the day belong to the class of word is same, belong to noun class of word. The lexical fields are notated like sets by including a list of lexemes in set brackets. For example, the field of the terms for the days of the week would be written in terms. The names for the 7 days of the week are not merely heteronyms, but are in addition interrelated by a cyclic order. It means that after Sunday, it must be Monday. After Monday, it must be Tuesday. Of one name to the others in terms of the cycle is part of its meaning. This is the reason why the following sentences is, yeah, it is true. Next, yeah, here I come to the conclusion. Based on the information delivered, it can be concluded that meaning plays an important part in language, not even meaning relations. Meaning relations on the word level describes how each of the four is very complicated. Synonymy explains that two words or expressions have the same or similar meaning. Hyponymy considers pairs of subordinates and superordinates in hierarchies. Oppositions describes things common and difference of the two expressions, and lexical fields in which group of lexemes should fulfill four conditions. Thank you very much. That's all the presentation about meaning relation. Yeah, I do hope that it can deliver. Yeah, although it is not much information about meaning relation. Thank you very much. And now I return to the time to the meeting room to Pak Dede. Thank you.
Thank you. Tepat 10 menit, 20 menit. Oke. Sekarang, Oke. Tadi sudah ada pertanyaan dari Prof. Sudipo di chat, dan saya tampilkan di sini supaya lebih besar melihat tulisannya. Saya pikir ini pertanyaan untuk Ibu Prof. Sutjiati. Silakan Ibu Prof. Mungkin melihatnya terlebih dahulu sebelum responnya.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Dede. Thank you very much, Prof. Sudipo, for the question given to me. As you have said that there is an expression or quotations to study language without reference to meaning is like studying road sign from the point of view of their physical properties. I do agree with this. I will begin by saying that word is exactly similar to human being. People, a person has got properties like a house, like a husband or wife or child or whatever properties, their properties. And also word has got properties. It depends now on whose theory that we are going to develop. If you are going to develop theory related to the one that I discussed today, we're concerned about the relation between sense and denotations. So the best theory for that is componential analysis theory. So the theories set or using universal features such as occur or not occur by putting mathematical symbol plus and minus, and also others universal features. And beside also, I do agree, before I'll try to claim that we should determine the meaning of the word, because we know the word has got a property, before we put it into the structure. But I don't want to debate like what we usually discuss in the class with the students, with the egg first, then we have a chicken or cock. But for sure, from the investigations, we have egg first. So like now I'm going to answer your question, must be meaning come first. as argued by Professor Keith Helen, because meaning is in use. After we know the meaning, then we put it into the structure that usage. I often said, if you are good in semantic, you must be good also in pragmatic, that language that use. Thank you, Prof. Sudipa.
Pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Oke, ada pertanyaan selanjutnya, sebentar.
Yeah. It's from Pak Umar Muslim.
Maaf, ada dua nih.
Yes. Could you please explain more on the relation between concept and meaning with examples from Indonesian? From the beginning, I have already said that concept is the psychological object. Concept in psychological object, while sense is meaning, but it relates one to the other. Because in my presentations, I have already said that must be match between concept and meaning. The psychological one, the psychological object, and also meaning is an abstract object, meaning is an abstract object, and psychological object, it relates, it should match. In Bahasa Indonesia, it's very easy to determine. There are quite a number of examples that we can determine in Bahasa Indonesia. For instance, if you want to say, for example, dalam Bahasa Indonesia, saya temukan cukup banyak kata-kata yang di mana konsep psikologikalnya itu akan berhubungan dengan abstrak konsep. Yang pertama, kepala misalnya. Ibu Sukarini has already mentioned. Before you put it into the context, as I said, concept, psychological object, sense, abstract object, you should put them together. If I say kepala or kursi, whatever you want to say, it must be matched in the distribution. When it is clear, you want to say that kepala, misalnya you want to say that dia kepala dari sebuah lembaga, dia adalah seorang kepala keluarga, sudah direalisasi the abstract object with the physical one. The physical one is the realizations of the abstract object. Itu yang saya katakan kepala. Demikian juga kursi. Dalam konteks, dia duduk di kursi sekarang. It doesn't mean you got to be careful in order that it's matched. Whether you want to analyze it in semiologist level 1, that denotatively, or going further or deeper to the second level, second stage, dia duduk di kursi yang bagus, bisa jadi kursinya bagus, or dia mendapatkan posisi yang bagus. So that's why it must match. So meaning is not the meaning of the word itself. Like kursi itu adalah benda yang dipakai atau tempat duduk whatever. How the speaker wants or the speaker intends the word to means. Kalau the speaker intends the word to mean that he's got a good position as the boss, nah boleh saja itu sudah kena semiologist level 2. Whatever words you want to say, you have to analyze through some stages. So how deep your analysis? Semiologist level 1, it will convey denotative meaning, like what my presentation, it consists of sense and denotation. If you go further, maybe semiologist level 2 might have connotative meaning. Konnotatif, then kalau dia itu adalah stabil, Ya, itu akan menjadi mitos, jika mantap akan menjadi ideologi. Itu jawaban saya. Yes, Dede? Halo?
Yes, Bu. Thank you. Saya lagi handle yang lain. Kemudian
Oke. Thank you,
ada
darling.
pertanyaan dari Prof. Swastra. Bentar, saya.
Yeah. Prof. Sasa, are there any differences between two modal expression referring to meaning versus expression and denotation semantic studies? Yeah, I have read it, Dede, because Prof. Swastra asking about, are there any differences between two modal expressions, reference meaning, and expression sense denoted term in semantic studies? Of course, in this context, Pak Prof, we got to be careful because the point semantic studies is study about meaning. So we got to be careful with that. When we talk about the sense, that the property of meaning, sense property of meaning, the realizations or the use of sense is denotatum. When we want to say that the meaning of this is a reference meaning, to express the reference, reference meaning to express what the speaker want to convey. Of course, we got to be careful. Which become the head of the expression itself, like what I said in semantic study, sense and denote expression, sense and denotation. As I said, expressions, misalnya, I like Coca-Cola or I like Coke. Yeah, in this context, expressions, we have already got the expression like I like Coke. The sense in this context, whether it's really a Coke or it could mean other drink, whatever drink, it could mean sama dengan sepeda motor. Naik Honda juga, naik Scoopy juga naik Honda, naik whatever itu juga dikatakan Honda, itu yang menandai denotatumnya. So expression will build the meaning of the context. Ya, itu jawaban saya Pak Prof. Halo. Halo Dede, ya sudah saya jawab. Ya, correct, I'm wrong. The next, Bu Prof Suci, whose question is it? Ada yang pertanyaan kedua mana deh? Pertanyaan yang kedua. Please kindly correct me if I'm wrong. I cannot. Yes, what is the next question? Satu muka. Yes, which questions? I cannot. Tidak nyambung ya. Halo Dede. Halo.
Ya,
Coba saya temukan pertanyaannya. Pertanyaan selanjutnya mana? Yeah, that's for Pak Prof Swastra. I have already answered the questions. Now the next question.
Sanjaya, from Sanjaya.
From Sanjaya. Where is it? Yes, I'll try to observe.
Maaf Bu Prof, tadi Bapak Ibu semua mohon maaf karena tadi saya sempat ada error network, jadi saya nggak bisa unmute punya saya gitu. Jadi sekarang saya sudah oke. Kadek Sanjaya Bu.
Ya, Kadek Sanjaya. Where is it? Mana dia Mang? Kadek Sanjaya, China. Okay. Personally, I feel it broaden our research while knowing where the term is delivered or reference of it. My inquiry, Bu Prof Suci, in your point of view, how important is for us, a linguist, to know the meaning of term plus to understand its reference on how the term is established. Yeah, it's really important because, again, I said, because there are many semanticists try to develop their theory, and then, but they stick on what I said. We begins by learning a lot about meaning from the Saussure that developed into Ogden and Richard and Allman, and then now developed into the term which is developed by Peirce and also Bardes. So who we are going to follow? If we follow Ogden and Richards, of course. Okay. As example, the word. Oh, kok hilang lagi? Okay. A lot whose interesting meaning. Example, what catfish literally as a noun, cat implies ikan lele. On the other hand, catfish is language. Okay. I think I have already answered the questions before. Whatever whose theory you follow, you have to stick that meaning is the sense. If the speakers want to mean this word like this, it doesn't matter. It's okay. Like what you said in your question here. It could mean ikan lele. It could also mean other or decisive relationship with someone. It could mean that because something is used to index. What is your concern is that's the meaning. You see? So as I said at the beginning, we have the name. You could name whatever like pepatah orang Bali. Apa sih bukan orang Bali, orang Indonesia? Apa sih artinya sebuah nama? You can name whatever you like, but the sense is really important. I do agree with Professor Kit Helen and also with Alman because the meaning is the sense itself. So from that, you can get the sense that you use to index the symbol itself. The other linguists will use it as a denotatum, like Professor Kit Helen Sanjaya. So you are correct. The semanticists who developed the theory is also correct because I'm not able yet to write a good theory of semantics, but I still use what my professor said because I learned a lot when I was in Monash University, particularly a lot about linguistic meaning developed by Kit Helen. I think that's my answer, Sanjaya, because the levels of analyzing the meaning could be through some stages. As I said, maybe catfish in the semiology level 1, it means ikan lele, but because of the context cannot match the meaning that what the speaker wants. So it goes further, it goes deeper. So it goes to semiology level 2, maybe level 3, it depends how deep your analysis is until you find out that the word conveys connotative meaning. Thank you.
Thanks Bu Prof. Ini maaf tadi karena ada gangguan network. Ada pertanyaan untuk Bu Sukarini. Ada pertanyaan dari Prof Sudipo untuk Bu Sukarini dan juga yang terlewat tadi sebelum Sanjaya adalah pertanyaan dari Bu Dayu Puspani untuk Ibu Prof dan Bu Sukarini. Mungkin Bu Sukarini sekarang menjawab pertanyaan ini. Silakan Bu.
Terima kasih Dede. Thank you Pak Prof Sudipa for the question. Whether the lexical field is similar to the semantic field. The question is based upon the example that I have given, and I took it from the book. Yeah, because lexical field is part of the semantic field. I think that it is similar because in lexical field, the group of words have to have the four conditions. One example of the one condition is belong to the same class of word. I think that is my answer, Prof. Sudipa.
Well, thank you for your answers. Thanks.
Okay.
Selanjutnya ini
From Bu Puspani, yes, it always appear when we are examining our students, particularly from translations dari pengutamaan translation. I do agree, Ibu Dayu. As I said, semantic in translation is the kingpins. I said it many times and always give an overview and feedback either to the supervisor of the co-supervisor of the students by please mention that the positions of semantic is really important. They have to describe at the beginning of their study, if they choose translation, they have to mention how to determine meaning. Because I was impressed by that become the topic of my sharing session today. They have to understand that the meaning is the sense before they come to determine what is the equivalent of the word, because we should understand what semantic is. It's not just only saying, I use Newmark because Newmark saying this, this, and this. I know Newmark also developed the theory that's given by previous semanticists, because we should understand at least what the meaning is. Philosophy of meaning is real important before they come up to the conclusion in relation to translation. In the translation, they mostly use a theory of Newmark for defining the meaning. It's real important before they come up to the conclusion. Hello, it's trouble. Okay, so that's why Budayu is trying to give the students overview. It's not only in the translation sections, you just talk about translation because it relates with semantic, because you try to find out the closest equivalent. What is equivalent? Ibu Sukarini has already explained. No one or no word in the world will have exactly synonymous or complete or absolute synonymous. They just have partial synonymy. How to determine it? Of course, they have to understand what meaning is. Then I have already explained. Thank you. Important meaning, transit contact in culture order. Of course, when we talk about the language, we talk about the culture. And then also meaning of a word and also determined by the culture. As I always said, maybe breakfast is just the equivalent of sarapan in Bahasa Indonesia, but the property of breakfast have will be different from the property of sarapan has. For example, in Bali, maybe related to time, what sort of food do we eat, something like that, you see? So the property of each word will be different from one word to the other. Therefore, we will say, this is just the equivalent, not absolute synonymy. Of course, it's related with culture. Thank you. Yes, Day.
Thank you, Ibu Prof. Suci.
You are welcome.
Terima kasih, Bu Prof. Oke, sekarang 11.24, jadi masih ada 6 menit. Jadi saya pikir, dan juga ada satu pertanyaan lagi dari Bapak Ketut Wandia. Mungkin kita lihat waktunya, saya pikir masih ada waktu untuk satu pertanyaan ini.
This doctor question is especially the word water might be different interpreted by the patient. In fact, the doctor means contain, but the patient think it is air minum. What do you think about the notion? Thank you. That's really good. Again, if you pay attention to my slide on the first one, and then also said, Pak Tutwan, ya, nice to meet you. Ini juga dipakai ajang untuk silaturahmi ya. Mohon maaf, I should say hello to you. Yeah. If you come back to look at my first slide after the title, so generally, the meaning composed by three categories, three important points. The first one is the sense. Whether the word sense that's referred to water and the sense that's referred to contain, it depends. It relates to what is denotation in this context mean, because the use of sense in speaking of particular word. Karena ini kan terkait dengan medical language, bahasa kedokteran. That's the first point. The next one, the one that you say here, is related to utterance meaning. That utterance meaning, of course, the doctor will utter. It's not just a sentence. If it is a sentence, it is an abstract form. When it is an utterance, it's realized. So it has utterance meaning, which means that hearer rationally determine that the speaker intends his meaning to convey. What the speaker, the doctor, intend the water in this context means. It doesn't mean that the patient should drink the water, that instead the doctor means in this context is contained. I think that's all, Pak Tutwan, ya. I hope you get what I have already said. Yes, Dede? Halo.
Ya, terima kasih, Bu.
Ya.
Baik, masih 3 menit.
Ya, silahkan.
Masih ada yang ingin bertanya langsung, silakan. Mungkin yang terakhir ini pertanyaan, kalau ada. Dan saya sudah share di chat link untuk informasi berbicara ke depan ya di sisa 2020. Silakan.
Selamat pagi, Pak Dede.
Selamat pagi, Pak Prof.
Saya sedang, Ibu Suci, thank you very much for your nice presentation.
You are welcome,
I would like to ask you something.
Yep.
I see something from morphology and syntax.
Yep.
So how great is the relation between when we are talking about meaning with the morphosyntax? Like the example you give just now about book. Book as a reference meaning or denotative, and books as a pragmatic meaning. But in Indonesia, if we translate, he borrows my book, and then he books 2 rooms, there will be no conversion form in Bahasa Indonesia, but you have got conversion in English. Book and book as a noun and book as a verb. While in Indonesia, we don't have a similar morphological process in which buku is memesan or but in Indonesia memesan and buku, while in English book and book. Thank you, Ibu. That's my question.
Yeah. You and I and also Prof. Artawa are the team teaching for morphology. One of the topic in our blended learning RPS-nya, I also include interface between phonology, morphology, syntax, and semantic. As I said, every language has got its own uniqueness, and every language has got its own characteristic. Conversions in Bahasa Inggris, misalnya, I drink water, I water the flower, something like that, that conversion, because it can function as a noun as well as a verb. Although we don't have in Bahasa Indonesia, but we do we can explain about the valency, because the valency will determine also the meaning of the word syntactically, because in this context, maknanya itu berubah secara karena faktor morfologi, could also be because of syntactic, from syntactic point of view. Misalnya, I'm not going to use the word book in this context because it is not a parallel between the characteristic of the English language with that of the Indonesian one. But my classical example for my students for explaining that it's related one field to the other. When we talk about morphology, we talk also about syntax, we also talk about semantic. For example, saya membeli baju. Saya membeli baju. We have three arguments because argument must be core argument. Jadinya saya membeli baju. Saya membelikan adik baju, so can is added to the verb membeli, so the valency increase. So we have direct object. Saya membelikan adik baju, artinya dalam secara studi semantik, so adik will get the benefit of it since the verb can is attached. So in this context, it is related. When we talk about study morphology, we also talk about syntax because of the occurrence of the direct object. Of course, the direct object can itself function semantically as benefactive. Thank you, Pak Prof.
For your response. Thank you very much. Yeah.
You are welcome.
Baik, terima kasih atas diskusi kali ini 11.31 dan saya tidak ingin membuang waktu lebih lama lagi untuk Bapak Ibu karena jadwalnya seharusnya kita 11.30. Jadi di chat saya sudah share link untuk informasi pembicaraan selanjutnya dan saya pikir mungkin sekian. Prof sedang ya? Kita akhiri Prof ya. Ya. Jadi terima kasih banyak atas waktunya dan kesediaannya untuk stay 1 jam 30 menit dan
Cukup banyak yang hadir.
Link absensi juga sudah di-share di chat sebelumnya. Jika ada yang ingin menyampaikan sesuatu, mungkin Bapak WD1 saya lihat on mic-nya. Enggak ya? Oke. Baik Bapak Ibu, saya pikir sekian dan sampai bertemu lagi di session selanjutnya bulan depan.
Thank you, Pak Arke.
Bapak Ibu sudah mendaftar
my sessions. What do you think? I follow linguist from Australia. Now, Prof. Kit Helen is in Cambridge. Yeah. Go ahead, Dede.
Ya, apa Bu. Jadi kalau Bapak Ibu teman-teman sudah sempat register di session sebelum-sebelumnya akan masuk ke mailing list kami dan tentunya kami akan menjadikan Bapak Ibu prioritas pertama untuk mendapatkan informasi terkait jadwal selanjutnya. Ya, saya pikir sekian. Saya tidak ada tambahan lagi. Saya hanya perlu switch ke YouTube untuk end stream.